One of the more pivotal roles in any practice is the practice manager, whose role looks very different seemingly everywhere you go. Are you setting up that role for success, both for you and the practice manager? My guest today consults with medical practices, particularly spa practices, but she finds herself working on this question a lot. She's going to share her ideas with us. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Usually that's what they want anyway, but we just think care is better when the provider owns the practice because they get to make all the clinical decisions they think are best, all the business decisions they think are best. Usually it's different. Sometimes it's different when somebody else owns the practice because they start whispering in the provider's ear what they want, what their agenda is. Nobody gets hurt, but it's a lot more for them to think about. Let's just keep it simple and keep it private. My guest today is Daniela Woerner. Daniela is the founder and CEO of Addo Aesthetics and is the host of the Top 14 podcast, Spa Marketing Made Easy. She's an esthetician who has worked as a spa director as well as consulted with the top skincare brands in the world and is an expert in marketing strategy and retail sales in the spa industry. Daniela, thank you for coming on Practice Care.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat about this today.
And it's an important topic. And we were talking before we started recording. My clients, of course, they all have practice managers or office managers. I look at that job, the job they do, and the things they tell me they do, everything from CFO to plumber. And I say to myself, oh, I'd never want that. And how do you even write a job description? So I'm very curious what you have to say about this. Let's start though, where I start with every guest. That was a short bio. That's what I asked for, though. So tell us a bit more about you, your firm. Help us get to know you a bit better.
Sure. So I have been in the industry for nearly 20 years now, 10 years in the consulting space. So 10 years I was working in derm and plastics and med spas.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's active duty. And so
Mm-hmm.
we started moving around 12 different times. And so I
Wow.
needed something that was location independent, stepped into consulting, and that really has been such a joyful and fulfilling role. So I work mostly with practices, spas, med spas, all of that, and help them with internal operations, really how to help their practices run smoothly and efficiently. And how you said in the beginning, you want to keep practices private. Well, our topic today about spa managers, I think is one of the best ways that you can do that, because a lot of the reasons that physicians or practice that they sell is because they are wearing all of those hats, and
Mm-hmm.
they get into this space where they are they want to practice medicine. They want
Mm-hmm.
to do what they went to school for. They want to care for their patients, and they feel overwhelmed and just underwater with all of the
Mm-hmm.
tasks that go along with entrepreneurship and running a profitable practice. And so
Yeah,
by filling some of these, what I see as essential roles, it really is a win-win-win for everybody.
totally agree. And you remind me of this beef I have that I don't know what to do about, but it's, every year some proportion of medical school grads, dental school grads, whatever school grads are going to go into business as a practice owner. And not only, if all of my guests are to be believed, which I believe that they are, not only is the word business never uttered in the 4 to 7 years or whatever, um, but some of them have said, they never came out and said in med school, earning money from treating patients is dirty, bad, and ugly. But that was clearly the message, just the unspoken message. But then a proportion of them go out and run a business, and it's just not helping. I don't know if there should be some business classes. I don't know what the answer is. That's the most obvious answer, but man, oh man, it's really, I don't want to go down this tangent, but just it
We
really
see it
bothers me.
We see it in aesthetics as well, because our company also works with a lot of estheticians or nurses
Yeah.
that move into opening their own spas. And that's a big complaint, is they don't teach you anything about business in aesthetic school or
Hmm.
in their school that they are in. Sorry, my lights are
Yeah.
doing that. But the thing that I tell them is the school's job is to get you ready for being able to assess the skin or perform whatever
Hmm.
service.
Hmm.
And if you want to learn entrepreneurship, then there's other places that you learn that. And so it's, I know that that's a complaint. I do think they should have these offshoot classes, you know how they have like the weekend classes or
Yeah.
these other electives for people that do want to go down that path because it is
Hmm.
a very real thing.
Hmm.
Um, but there's added, you know, the amount of responsibility that you want to take on, there's additional learning that goes into that.
True. And you're right. There's no shortage of resources. Um, yeah, it just, I don't know, have an hour
I get
seminar.
it.
This,
I know.
yeah, I don't know what the answer is. And you have a very practical, realistic response, which is just go find it elsewhere, which, yeah, that's what you got to do. So let's get into a practice manager role. Man, oh man, it is just, and I've said to some of my clients, the practice managers, I'm like jokingly, I don't know if you realize the amount of leverage you have. Like if you walked out, and I'm not telling him to do that, but holy cow, because you have so many. So like a good fit profile of a practice manager, given that they're everything from the numbers people to the plumber, jokingly, what's a good fit profile look like?
So first off, I want to just state some of my overall beliefs
Hmm.
in business, and that is that no business should be completely reliant on any one person, not even the CEO,
Hmm.
not even the physician, right? We
Hmm.
want to create something that can run and ultimately, especially to go along with your mission of, keeping private practices private, at some point that physician may want to work a little bit less
Hmm.
depending on the season of life that they're in. They may
Hmm.
want to start speaking at conferences or, publishing or, whatever it is that they're wanting to get into.
Hmm.
And we want that business to still be able to operate and run smoothly without them in the day to day. And
Hmm.
so that means that there needs to be someone driving the ship. So
Hmm.
I look at any successful business as having a CEO visionary type of role, which is fulfilled by the physician owner,
Hmm.
and then a really an implementer, a
Hmm.
person that is doing the day to day, making sure that the team is managed, that the inventory is done appropriately. And I think so often what happens, at least when I was working in practices, because I have been the practice manager, I have been the director, it's the physician will see talent in someone that's an esthetician or a someone at the front desk and say, "Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that?" And you end up wearing 15 hats, which seems to be useful at the time, but it is ultimately not the best use of that individual's time.
Yeah, and the talent they saw may not translate into what they're being asked to do. Right. So
So if you want someone to do social media and you want them to do your books, those are two different skill
my
sets.
goodness, that's rare. Yeah.
But that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens so often. And so, um, I think to answer your question, I have a list here of what I kind of see as general responsibilities of someone who is in that role. Would it be
Hmm.
helpful if I kind of
Yeah.
went through some of
Hit at
those?
least the most pivotal ones that you think.
So, team management and development,
Hmm.
number one. So that is, making sure the team schedules, making sure they're following policies and procedures, that everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing and when.
Hmm.
That should be the spa manager. The
Okay.
physician doesn't need to be involved in that piece. Also, developing them to hit their specific KPIs.
Okay.
So every role, whether you're a nurse, whether you're, whatever it is that you're doing in the practice,
Hmm.
should have some way to measure the success of that role. And the
Hmm.
spa manager or practice manager should be the one that has ownership of that, that's overseeing it.
Hmm.
Daily operations, opening, closing, making sure that patients are happy, um, and execution of any type of marketing or promotional plans.
Hmm.
So it's important that I think the CEO is involved in the strategy and vision.
Hmm.
And here's what we want to do. I
Hmm.
want to host an event. I want to, whatever it is, I want to introduce medically assisted weight loss. The they're coming up with the idea. The
Hmm.
practice manager is executing that idea and making the step-by-step happen.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll just wrap up. I have a few on here, but inventory management. I think that there's a lot of time and money lost in inventory management because so many practices are ordering week by week. Oh, we ran out of this. I got to order this. We ran out of that. I got to order that.
Hmm.
And when we have a system around inventory management, ordering, all of that,
Hmm.
not only can we save payroll dollars, but we can also save shipping dollars and from ordering in bulk what we need for that month, understanding our PARs,
Hmm.
especially if you're a practice that's selling retail products, if you have an aesthetic side, um, this can be absolutely huge.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. One of my clients the other day said, one of the offices, they're just over ordering. It's funny you mentioned this. Like, we just don't need 5 months of Band-Aids, whatever it was. And so
Yeah.
the practice manager who's in the main office is finding herself spending time with that satellite office, going with, and getting sucked into something that just any event. A couple of follow-up questions from what you
Yeah.
said. So let's just pick on marketing because we both do that.
Yeah.
So if the CEO says, I want to, introduce this new product or service, and that's the practice manager's role, do you find like you can the practice manager can take that on him or herself, or they can try to outsource that and work with that? Are you agnostic to that? Do you, you know, if the practice manager said, look, I don't have any experience in that, but we can find people who do, what's your reaction to that?
So we really believe in systems and processes in everything that we do.
Hmm.
And so the way that we help and support, um, we use a project management software called Monday.com.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of them out there. I think it's important to find the one that works with your brain,
Hmm.
and just stick with it.
Yeah.
So we love Monday.com, but there is ClickUp, there's Trello, there's
We use
Asana,
teamwork. And yes, a
Teamwork.
project's
Yes.
a project, and find the one that fits with you. And exactly.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
get really good at that one. Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, we will have project boards of what are the step-by-step things that get done.
Hmm.
And so if it's a baseline, if you guys never have done an event or you never have launched a new service or whatever, yes, there's the opportunity to work with a consultant or outside, person. A lot
Hmm.
of times the vendors that you're working with will have
True.
practice development managers that can help you. Your reps can help as well. There's a lot of different ways to
Hmm.
find out how to do this particular thing. But
Hmm.
we want to create a step-by-step plan that they can
Hmm.
follow. S- Again, with the overall intention that if this project manager or this spa manager, practice manager leaves at some point,
Hmm.
then you're not going to be starting back over from scratch. We
Hmm.
want to have everything documented,
Hmm.
everything systemized. So then again, it's not like,
Totally agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
someone can step into that thing. And if you're
Yeah.
starting from scratch, then make sure that you take 30 days and say, for the next 30 days, I want everybody to write down and document literally every single thing that you do.
Hmm.
You have to tell your people why, because they're going to hate it.
Hmm.
And it's a lot of work, but ultimately it is such a benefit for every single person in the practice.
Yeah, because the knowledge walks out the door if you don't do it. And then something you might have been doing seamlessly for the last, I'll make it up, 5 years, that person left. You're like, how come we can't keep doing this? Because
Yeah.
the person who did it left and nobody else knew. Yeah, that's why you do it, for
And I
smooth
think
operations.
what most businesses will find is that the front desk or the medical assistant or the nurse or even the social media person, they're doing a ton of things that you don't even realize they're doing.
Hmm.
And they're little things. And so we want to make sure that those little things don't fall through the cracks.
Hmm.
If someone goes on maternity, if someone goes on vacation, if someone,
Yeah.
takes a leave
Yeah.
of absence for something,
Yeah.
we want to know what they're doing, not to micromanage them, but to just make sure that we can get all of those things done so that our team does have the freedom to
Hmm.
go on these different things, which will in turn um, retain your team for a longer period of time.
Yeah. So that's one follow-up question. The other one, based on what you said, is let's just go back to the plumber. And I keep raising this because I have clients who tell me I do everything from unclog the toilet all the way up to core. So when you come across it, like what do you do with that? How do you, I guess it sounds like you believe that practice manager should no longer be doing things like that. How do you handle that one? Like who ends up doing it?
Yeah, so I typically, so people respond to like, how much is this costing me? right? So that's
Mhm.
always going to be how we move the needle. So when I'm working with a practice, I'll have them do a time tracker. And I look at, and again, I'm like, you're you're not gonna like me for a whole week, but I promise you're gonna love me when you're done. And
Yeah.
so really go through, and every 15 minutes, I want to know what you're doing. Even if you're scrolling on Instagram, I don't care.
Hmm.
Like, it's the most important thing that we know what's actually happening, without trying to make something up. So I want to
Hmm.
know what you're actually doing. And we have one for the CEO, and then we have one for the staff. And we're looking at, you know, who we then group into categories. What are the things that are being done?
Hmm.
I once had a CEO that spent 6 hours a day
Oh God.
on email, someone else's to-do list. And so I said, what is that costing you to not move forward on your specific goals because you're just doing work that is busy? And so what we do is identify the different tasks so that each individual is only doing the highest level tasks that they can do. So
Hmm.
the physician should only be doing physician tasks. The spa manager should only be doing spa manager tasks. And if we need help or support, we're hiring a virtual assistant. We're finding support, that a
Hmm.
handyman of who do we call when the
Right.
toilet gets clogged,
Yeah.
and we're helping them to systemize that and build those relationships so that, and it doesn't mean that like you're above this work. Like you can change like who cares?
Yeah.
It's all with small business, we're all doing everything.
Yes.
But 80% of the time, can we stay within our roles? That's
Hmm.
going to positively impact the company in
Hmm.
such a huge way that will allow for more profits, which then comes down in more ways that you can support your staff, more equipment
Yeah.
that you can invest in, all of these really positive things that benefit the entire practice.
In corporate, we used to call it, value creation activities. And we need to make sure that the assets that we invest are pointed towards the highest value creation activities we could find. And that's another way of saying the same thing. If the physician whose every visit, is, I'll make it up, $500, is spending time on $50 tasks. I
Yep.
mean, it doesn't take long to add up to
So
real money.
yeah, I always say, it's like, is this $1,000 an hour task, $100 an hour task, or
Yeah.
$10 an hour task?
Yeah.
Where are you spending your time?
Yeah.
So when we see that, and it's like, okay, well, if you only spent your time, if we got rid of these things and you could see this many more patients, or you could be out in the community building relationships with other local businesses that you can create strategic partnerships with.
Hmm.
By being out there, could you generate 100,000 for your practice
Hmm.
by forming a partnership when instead you are unclogging the toilet?
Right.
And so it's really like shifting that perspective of what are the highest tasks that I can be spending my time with, because time will always be your most valuable resource.
And it literally equals money when you don't have enough time, right? You could
Yeah.
just, there's an example.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how often do you find, so you go through the exercise of documenting every 15 minutes and then you come back and you tell people what you found. How often do you find, let's just stay on the toilet examples like that where the practice, the physicians or the owners go, wow, I had no idea that person was doing that.
Every time.
Just every
Every
time. Yeah.
time. Every
Yeah.
time. They're like,
Why
really?
are you doing that? Like I wonder how it's like, why are you doing that? Like, what do you mean? Why am I
And
doing,
what's really interesting with the CEO one, because we have a different one for staff than CEO. And with
Sure.
the CEO, we're looking at like your overall life.
Hmm.
And these are things that are also it's private to you. We're not like sharing this with everybody. But
Yeah.
when I did mine a couple of years ago, I found that I was spending a massive amount of time on household tasks at
Okay.
home
Hmm.
because my husband was away quite a bit for work.
Hmm.
So I realized that if I hired somebody to help me at home with cleaning and laundry, then I could be spending more time at work in the hours that I had available that wasn't like my dedicated time with my kids. So I hired someone to help and support me, which gave me, I think, like 15 hours to work.
At a
of
much higher rate than you paid for that person, right? There
yes,
it is. There's, yep, the
yes.
profit's the difference. Of course.
And
Yeah.
and so it's the same thing as like the email example. It's like we really need to be aware of how we're spending our time
Hmm.
and also doing things that make sure that we are not just overly exhausted and overworked,
Yeah.
because we want to show up for as our best self for our patients.
Yeah. It's like, you kind of bring it to the head of, do you like burning money? Like, just do you take $20 bills out of your wallet and just set them on fire? Because that's what's happening, you know?
But I think the challenge here, to bring it back to the spa manager role or the
Hmm.
practice manager role, is that as humans, so often we feel that no one can do it as good as us, or they don't understand our vision. And so it really is development and leadership
Hmm.
that we need to focus on to be able to establish the trust, and communicate what our expectations are and what is important to us.
Hmm.
And so a couple of the things that, for me personally, I believe in hire slow, fire fast.
Hmm.
I also believe that you need to like the person
Hmm.
that is coming in, because there's a real relationship that gets developed. And if you just don't jive with the person that's coming in, it's going to
Hmm.
make you're spending, 40, 50, 60 hours a week with this individual.
Hmm.
Um, it's not going to be a good thing. So
Hmm.
when we're hiring, one of the things that we always do is we'll do our job posting. We're setting out all of the criteria. We're talking about who we are as a company. What are the expectations? What does the ideal candidate have? What are the core values of our practice? And then we
Hmm.
give instructions of how to apply. Um, and that will say, send an email, send an email with this in the subject line and attach your resume. And anybody that doesn't follow those instructions immediately gets deleted.
I've heard this before. It's such a cool, or they'll bury something like in the bottom, just say, look, you didn't
We
even
do
read
it.
it.
We
Yeah.
say, put
Yeah.
put your MBTI and your favorite ice cream flavor. And MBTI is a personality test.
Okay.
And if someone writes back, and says, "What's MBTI?" then you delete them, because
Hmm.
their job is to support you, and there is such a thing as Google.
Hmm.
And so it's like,
Really? Yeah.
you know,
I think
uh,
I've heard of it. Yeah.
yes. And that's their first test of like being able to follow instructions, right?
Yeah.
But they are interviewing you just as much as you are interviewing them. And
Hmm.
you want to find the right fit, because turnover is expensive.
Hmm.
So take your time, find your person. They are out there, and just make sure that your values align.
Hmm.
You want a self-starter. You want someone, what I've found with practice managers, because we do train practice managers in our company as well, so often they're so dedicated to their CEO, they're so dedicated to the vision of the company they have, they don't know what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
Hmm.
And so it's the CEO must give them the direction. I want you to have full ownership of this.
Hmm.
I'm going to back you and support you on
Hmm.
this. I want you to run with this idea.
Hmm.
Employees have a very different mindset. They want to make sure that they're doing what the CEO wants them to do.
Hmm.
Without explicit instruction,
Hmm.
they're not going to move forward and do it.
Yeah.
So it really takes understanding yourself as a leader, what you need, what the type of person that you need, to find that really cohesive fit.
Yeah. And that was, you sort of anticipated the next question I had, which was hiring insights, just some hiring insights to find somebody who's good faster. And some of the things you listed, like, the mission, the vision, the values, I wonder how often you find yourself helping a practice come up with those, because they either don't have them, or they do, but they're cloudy, they're not really clear, or they do, but they're not really practiced. Um, it takes a lot of work. As important as culture is, which is really the umbrella term for all those, it takes real work. I mean, people think, oh, that's easy, we'll just come with that in an afternoon. Not a good one. I mean, it takes real work. Do you find yourself, spending time on that as well?
We do, and it depends on the age of the practice. And
Hmm.
so I think when, and really like there's a shift that happens after about 5 years in business,
Mm-hmm.
Those first 5 years, you're just trying to figure it out. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is going to work? It's a bit of chaos. And then once you make it through there, you start to be like a little bit more mature of a company. And you're like, this is our ideal client. This is our
Mm-hmm.
brand guide. This is
Mm-hmm.
our, you're like getting into those different things.
Mm-hmm.
And, something that we did in our company that I've passed on to other practices that we've worked with is we had our core values that I created in like a business exercise that I was going through. And we really, we talked about them at all of our all hands meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But after this was when we were like 8 years in business, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my team to do a full survey. And within my team, we have about 15 people on the team. And I said, I want to know what you think our core values are. How
Mm-hmm.
do we make people feel? And that to me is like, how do we show up? What do we honor?
Mm-hmm.
And we redid our core values. We essentially just got rid of two. Um,
Okay.
and we kept the other three because we said we live this every day. We know this is our core value without reading it. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about it, consistently. Um, and so it's something that we all have as humans, like family is our top core value,
Mm-hmm.
which may seem a little bit weird for a business consultancy, but we treat one another like family. We have a pretty flat organization.
Mm-hmm.
We're all friends outside of the workplace, but
Mm-hmm.
we also, it's very important to us that we give the advice and treat our clients like family as well.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that a lot of these business owners have families themselves. And so it's really like honoring that as an overarching theme. And so that was something that we learned was
Mm-hmm.
very important to us. Um, so for practice managers or practice physicians, like what do they, is it quality of care? Is it integrity?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it being on time? Like, can we, there's so many different pieces, but like, what is the thing that you guys as a practice all believe and align on?
Right.
And there's some great exercises that you can do, to help you figure that out. But
Mm-hmm.
like, it doesn't have to be this complex thing. It's like, how
Mm-hmm.
do we want to make people feel?
Yeah. And you just have to like go through the exercise so that you feel, yeah, this is it. This is it. It's not, it is this, it's not that. You really want to get it to the point. It can be structured, but it does take, you ask people, you say you have it, what is it? And then you hear it and you go, I don't know. Maybe, maybe if you thought it through a bit more, not in a
But I
disagreeing way,
think,
but I'm like, I don't see it, or they sound bit, not to go down this tangent, but it's important for hiring anybody, let alone a practice manager.
but I think that if you find someone that's not fitting in with the team or that they're most likely violating one of your core values.
Yeah.
So if they're not treating someone like family, if they're not acting in integrity, if they're not giving um, above and beyond service, if they're
Hmm.
not, whatever the thing is, it's like
Hmm.
usually the infraction can relate back to a core value of the company.
Yeah. Fair enough. Um, Boy, we have covered a lot of ground. In fact, you answered another question I had, so I'm not going to ask. It was about expectations, good expectations, but you hit a lot of that for the practice manager role. So I'll ask a catch-all question. Um, is there anything you think we should have covered about the practice manager role, finding, hiring, expectations, anything, anything that you think we should talk about, or that we just didn't get to?
Yeah, I think the more clear your expectations of what does success in this role look like, the better.
Mhm.
So we really like to have specific KPIs around financial aspects. So I believe that the spa manager is responsible and should receive a benefit for hitting the monthly financial goals
Okay.
of the company.
Hmm.
Um, their KPIs may be around um, if it is a medical spa or something along those lines, could they be, do they need to be around retail to service or booking percentage or whatever the
Hmm.
KPIs are that you are focused on in
Sure.
your practice? And then overall, like what are the expectations around team and culture?
Hmm.
because you can have somebody that hits their numbers phenomenally, but
But
they
they're
just aren't
jerks.
on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, like, how do we value those particular things? And can they grow in a fast-paced and ever-changing environment? Can they be
Hmm.
flexible, right? Those are really important pieces as well. And so I like to have everything as clear as possible. I also recommend doing a 90-day onboarding period where you're really setting them up for success. And then you do a review at that 90 days. And if that person doesn't work, it's okay. Like,
I was
give
gonna like
yourself
a
permission.
probationary period. I was gonna ask you, like,
Yeah, it is a
do you do
probationary
that?
period for the first
Yeah.
90 days, where, we're setting them up for success with making sure that they're fully trained, that they have everything that they need, because so often practices are so busy, it's a Band-Aid hire. They're
Hmm.
like, I just need help, just come in and fix it.
Hmm.
But we are not we're not giving them, they don't even know our employee handbook, or they
Hmm.
don't know it. It's just like, come in and fix it.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that they really have everything that they need to be successful in our practice and support us as the CEO with what we need. And that takes communication.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the some sort of probationary period. You're hiring a stranger, no matter how much there's still a stranger on day one. And why would you make a long, I mean, eh, yeah, I'm a big fan of, you got to learn. You just need time to learn. 3 months sounds like a good amount of time to get a feel one way or the other. I love it. All right. So that was like one of the first wrap up questions. The other wrap up question I ask is, so let's say, hopefully we've caught a lot of listeners' attention. They've been thinking about their practice manager role either because that's what they do or because they own the practice. And they like what you've said, but they just don't know where to get started. They feel the
Mhm.
problem, but they don't know how to solve it. Are there one or two super simple practical tips you could give them as soon as they're done listening to help them kind of get off the starting line and get going?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a spa manager job posting that is a
Okay.
template that we've got for you guys to download. And I would download that. I would edit it to your practice.
Sure.
And there's a few places that you want to start looking for people, start interviewing, and
Hmm.
just get that skill down. Even if you're not ready to fully hire yet, you've got to really understand where you can find people. So
Hmm.
um, send an email out to your list of patients. I hope that you're keeping an email list, and I hope that you're building it with
Amen.
new patient or prospective patients as well.
Hmm.
But send it out there, post it on social, have a careers page on your website. Look at local Facebook groups for your community. There's typically like your city
Yeah.
name groups. You want to ask all of your reps, the ask your circles, like if you have like a PTA, if you have, at your kid's school or whatever, like
Hmm.
really get out in the community, your chamber of commerce, your BNI. And also, there's Indeed and ZipRecruiter and these
Hmm.
other places that you can find. But you really, um, with the amount of energy that it takes to capture someone's attention right now, you can't
Hmm.
just send out one email and be like, why is nobody applying?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you've really got to feel like you're screaming it from the rooftops to be able
Yeah.
to get those people in.
Yeah. There's also an organization called MGMA, Medical Group Managers Association. They're national and there's chapters in many states. So like in Illinois, it's ILMGMA, and that's practice managers are members of it. So there's
Oh,
another
that's
one.
great.
Yeah. Where
That's
spa
great.
gets in there, I don't know, but whatever. I mean, it's there's transferable skills certainly. So try them as well. But yeah, reach out to your network. It's if you step back from the specifics, that's really kind of what you just said in a very robust way. Um,
Community is everything.
yeah.
Community is like, if you learn nothing else, it's like the connections and relationships that you have, both personally and professionally, are going to determine your success in such a huge way.
Yeah. I love the patience part because at least, your more active patients, they kind of know you. So you could
Hmm.
even say, who do you think you have any friends who would fit, who have the experience and who you think would fit in every day? It's nice. It's a nice touch. I like that. Um, Cool. Thank you very much. So, your job description, we will get into the show notes for your episode. We'll have a link to it so that anybody who wants to download it, they can find it there. This has been great. It's such an important topic. I'm surprised we haven't had it. We're almost 3 years into this podcast. This is the first time we've talked about this specific role. So thank you for coming on Practice Care and helping us understand it better.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And you supplied your contact information. We're going to get that into the show notes for your episode. So anyone who wants to contact you, now they have another way to do so. A couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you're someone like Daniela or us and you seek to serve private practice owners, or if you're a private practice owner yourself or you work for one and you've got some business experience that you think other practice owners would benefit from, please, we want you to come on Practice Care and tell the world about it. In the show notes for Daniela's episode and every episode, there's a link, couple of questions. It's easy. Tell us what's on your mind so we can get you scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, if you haven't subscribed yet, shame on you. Practice Care, one word. It's easy. Not to victim shame. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on just about every player. Easy to find. Practice Care, one word. Subscribe, because we drop a new episode every week, and that's the easiest way to stay up to date. Thanks very much. Happy holidays. This is going to go live on the holidays, but you can think back to when it was holidays. And until next time.